9 spine-chilling experiences, terrifying secrets revealed about my haunted ex-partner. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It all started with Carter's toys. One morning, she found the Legos she'd insisted he put away the night before, arranged in a perfect circle on the living room floor. She thought it was a prank, until a chill ran down her spine, making her realize she was alone. Next, she found crumbs tiny, trail-like leading from the kitchen to a dark corner of the hallway. There was no reason for them to be there. No snacks had been consumed, at least not by her. That unwelcome intuition tugged at her. She was being watched. Then came the whispers. Odd, faint murmurs that drifted through the walls, wrapping around her like cold fingers when she tucked Carter under the covers at night. She'd often sit still in the dark, frozen, listening. Each night, the shadows seemed to grow bolder, invading her already hostile thoughts, reminding her of Jake, the charming man everyone admired, who had once made her world shimmer. But even the shimmer had faded, replaced by an unsettling dread that felt palpable. As she walked through Oak Brook, the neighbors' smiles seemed more like masks hiding their own fears. She braved conversations about her ex, only to hear the unnerving stories coating his charm like a sinister glaze. One woman, Linda, shared a chilling tale about a gathering that spiraled out of control. Men their husbands vanished without a trace. She whispered that some said they left town, but others knew better. The shadows in the neighborhood seemed to darken the quaint brick houses, fueling a collective unease Emma could taste. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation clawed at Emma as she combed through old family photographs Jake had tucked away, smiling faces, laughter freezing into portraits. Yet, in the corner of one faded image, a shadow lurked. The unnerving likeness bore similarities to the folk tales she heard about curses, stories so deeply intertwined with the community that to name them would be to invoke them. She felt herself circling a precipice, deep in a pit where nightmares loomed just beyond the veil of the familiar. The undead rustling of fallen leaves whispered secrets she could barely comprehend. The home she believed to be her sanctuary now felt like a cage, every creak echoing the twisted fabric of her past. When she sat down across from Jake, she expected clarity. Instead, he unfurled a web of fractured truths, revelations that seared into her heart like a brand. Each word twisted her reality, fracturing the warm memories. She realized those whispers were his echoes, taunting her thoughts in the dead of night. As she retreated from him, panic pulsed through her veins. He knew the folklore, knew what he had summoned. Now, as she lay in bed, the presence of shadows felt heavier than before, a blanket of dread wrapping around her. With Carter sleeping peacefully, she saw only the danger looming. The question gnawed at her: had she unwittingly welcomed a monster back into their lives? Would she have to choose between a monstrous love and the sacred bond of motherhood, caught in an escalating nightmare? The walls cracked cold and dark, closing in. Emma jolted awake, the air thick with an electric tension that suffocated. The whispers from the walls had intensified, morphing into urgent hisses that seemed to beckon her name. It was as if the very house conspired against her, urging her towards the truth she feared most. Carter lay beside her, blissfully unaware. Her instinct screamed to protect him, to shield his innocence from whatever darkness loomed. She felt the bed frame tremble slightly, a low groan resonating throughout the room. She held her breath, straining to catch the hushed conversations seeping from the corners, but they remained elusive, teasing her sanity, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. She felt a compulsion to investigate, a terrible draw that left her heart racing. Creeping out of bed, she stepped quietly across the creaky floorboards as if she might wake some slumbering beast. Deep down, she feared what she might uncover, yet the need for answers pushed her forward. In the kitchen, the shadows danced in the flicker of the nightlight, twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed to mock her. She flipped the light switch, and the harsh overhead bulbs flickered back to life, dispelling some of the dark, but not the chilling sense of dread that lingered. The room was empty, too empty, as though it held its breath. A chill whispered past her ear, a breath too cold for comfort. She turned quickly, clutching the counter for support. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. She shook her head, convincing herself that she was imagining things. But the second movement caught her attention: soft, discernible scratches coming from the pantry. Her heart raced as she slowly approached, each step feeling heavier than the last. The scratching intensified, becoming frantic, as if something or someone was trying to escape. She grasped the handle, a rush of ice flooding her veins. "Carter," she whispered, glancing back at her son's sleeping figure. The fabric of her reality frayed around the edges. She had to know, had to confront whatever lurked within the pantry. With a swift pull, the door swung open, creaking like a ghostly warning. Darkness fell out like a shroud, filling the kitchen with a putrid smell, a mix of something rotten and something alive. The pantry was empty. She released the breath she didn't realize she was holding. Then, her eyes caught movement amongst the shelves. A small toy airplane, Carter's favorite, lay on the ground, spinning gently as if tossed down by an invisible hand. She knelt to grab it but froze as a laugh echoed, childish, not her son's. It twisted her insides until bile rose in her throat. She crawled backward, panic gripping her. The whispers returned, now harmonizing into laughter, dancing around her ears, soft and taunting. "Come out, come out." They beckoned, as if calling into the depths of a childhood game turned sinister. Emma backed away into the living room, desperate to distance herself from the pantry's haunting embrace. She needed to protect her son, to unravel this horror. As she glanced over her shoulder, the shadows morphed into a figure, a shape that elongated and twisted, forming a familiar outline. An agonizing chill settled in the pit of her stomach. "Jake," she breathed, horror creeping into her thoughts. The last piece of the puzzle fell into place, and she now understood that he was more than just a man. He was the vessel of something much darker. She glanced at Carter, still sleeping, unaware of the terror that clawed its way into their lives. They had been marked, tied into the middle of a story she didn't want to be part of. Emma shuddered as she whispered, "What do you want from us?" But as if answering her question, the shadows converged, and the laughter grew louder, echoing within her skull like a storm. The reality of her situation twisted in a horrifying dance, leaving her standing at the precipice of truth. She turned her focus back to the doorway, feeling the weight of Jake's secrets pressing against her. What would happen when the past finally came to collect its dues? Would she be able to save Carter from what she had awakened? The darkness swelled, sinister and predatory. Emma felt a push and urge to flee, but there was nowhere to run. Little did she know, the real game was just beginning. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of broken giggles, twisting in knots around her throat, almost choking her. Emma felt the walls tremble, as if they were alive, engaging in a sinister celebration of her fear. Each footstep echoed back from the shadows, mocking her retreat. "No!" she gasped, breath hitching in her throat. The figure of Jake loomed larger, its presence overwhelming. It was so much more than a memory, it was his essence, interwoven with the shadows, breathing life into the darkness. "Carter!" she cried, forcing her legs to move toward the boy, desperate to reach him. She was a moth instinctively drawn to the flame, feeling the presence of what once was and what should never return. Cold panic wrapped around her chest. She might lose him. The laughter shifted again, this time trailing her every step, teasing, almost playful. "Mommy, Mommy!" it sang, echoing then fading backward into echoes that twisted in her ear. She spun around, eyes darting everywhere. The corners of the room felt darker now, dogs barking somewhere far away, the wind outside shrieking in opposition to the silence inside her home. She burst into the living room, closing the distance to Carter's sleeping form, yet the shadows seemed determined to keep her at bay. The air grew thicker, and the child's soft breaths felt like a fragile thread tethering her to sanity. Overwhelmed, she knelt beside him, brushing hair from his forehead, trembling as she tried to shield him with her body, a barricade against the encroaching nightmare. "Stay with me, sweetheart," she whispered, though uncertainty gnawed at her. Would he hear her? Would she be enough? Suddenly, the front door rattled violently, like something was trying to break in. The wind howled through the cracks of the old house, making eerie sounds that blended with the laughter still resonating from the pantry. She couldn't tell if the door creaked with age or if something sinister was outside. Longing to get inside, Emma's heart raced. "What is going on?" she croaked, her voice barely above a whisper as she turned to face the door, praying for silence. But the wind whipped through the house, carrying with it a low rumble that vibrated through the walls, the promise of something worse emerging from the shadows. Once more, she heard Jake's voice, deep, dark, and edged with menace. "You can't protect him, Emma. He belongs to me now." Each word felt like a dagger, sinking deeper into her resolve. She scrambled back, feeling the weight of his presence grow heavier in the room, suffocating. "No!" she shouted, desperate fury surging through her. "You want to take him?" As she cried out, the lights flickered, casting ghastly shadows that danced across the walls. She could almost see the shape of Jake, looming across the doorway, now merging with the swirling dark figures. The air was electric with tension, and the laughter escalated to a crescendo that made her chest tighten. "Mommy," Carter murmured, stirring slightly, oblivious to the chaos around him. Emma's heart clenched. How could she protect him from a world where even shadows could take on a voice? The pantry door creaked open, deeper shadows spilling forth like smoke, curling toward her with a predatory intent. She felt their icy fingers grazing her thoughts, her memories. In that moment of despair, something flared to life inside Emma, a fierce determination. "I want to let you take him," she declared, voice steadying. But as the darkness surged forward, it offered no promises, only dread. Was this where everything ended? Would she face the entity that had claimed so much? As the dark figures enveloped her, a sense of foreboding gripped her heart. The game was sinister, yet the deeper she dug, the closer she got to uncovering the truth behind Jake. Perhaps the answers weren't just in the past but in the shadow itself. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find salvation or damnation? The darkness pressed in around Emma like a thick fog, suffocating and oppressive. The shadows swirled and writhed, a thousand whispers merging into a single, dreadful symphony, a song of despair. She felt its cold touch envelop her, a chill that seeped into her bones, igniting her fear. "Carter!" she cried out, but her voice was swallowed by the laughter that hollowed her resolve. "Mommy, help!" The echo of her son's voice cut through the chaos, grounding her for a fleeting moment. She fought against the tendrils of shadow creeping toward Carter, each one a grotesque reminder of what she was up against. They moved like living smoke, shifting and swirling with a hunger that twisted her stomach. "Stay with me," she begged, pushing back the shadows, as if sheer will could form a barrier. But the figures pressed closer, and their laughter turned mocking, taunting her. It felt almost as if they feasted on her fear, drawing strength from the terror that coursed through her veins. Then, something shifted. A deep, low growl emanated from the pantry. It was as if the darkness itself had grown fed up with her defiance. Emma's feet felt rooted, her fight wailing against the deafening cacophony of despair. She gathered the frayed ends of her courage and lunged towards Carter, desperate to shield him from whatever was emerging from the shadows. As she closed the gap, the air thickened, dense with a looming dread. The growl morphed into a hiss, curling around her like smoke, making her breath shallow. "Carter, wake up!" Her hands shook violently as she brushed against him, but the boy remained firmly asleep, untouched, unaware. And there it was again, Jake's voice, sinister and alluring. "You're too late, Emma. He's already in my grasp." The edges of her vision blurred, consumed by the darkness that swirled like a tempest around her. In that moment, a flicker of light shone through the gloom, catching her eye. It came from the kitchen, emanating warmth amidst the encroaching chill. Heart pounding, Emma stumbled towards it, drawn like a moth to a flame. Perhaps there was hope. Maybe she could fight back, yet as she crossed the threshold, the laughter crescendoed, harmonizing with the whispers, a symphony that heightened her panic. Shadows clawed at her back, forcing her to turn. The pantry door loomed like a mouth ready to swallow her whole. A primal instinct screamed for her to run, but she stumbled into the ethereal glow instead. The light was fleeting, ethereal, almost mocking in its nature. It flickered like a candle caught in a draught and then extinguished. Darkness swallowed her again. The growls morphed into a horrendous chant, a chant that spoke of loss and regret, of memories twisted and broken. Join us, Emma. The haunting melody filled her thoughts, curling around the edges of her mind, tugging at her sanity. No! She cried out, but the word felt weak in the face of the gathering storm. The pantry door was ajar now, a wider gap revealing something clawing to get out. Shadows reached for her, fingers grasped at her arms, dragging her closer. A shaped mass formed within the door, its features shifting eerily, a distillation of everything she feared. Desperation morphed into fury. "You won't take my son." With a fierce cry, she lunged for Carter, holding him tightly against her chest. But she was met by resistance, the darkness pulling at her, threatening to drag them down into the abyss. The growl escalated to a roar, shaking the floor beneath her, shaking the very foundation of everything she believed. Emma felt the world spin, felt her heart race, but within that storm, she sensed something deeper stirring. "Fight it!" Emma roared, hurling her thoughts at the apparition. "You are nothing." Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, hesitating, their laughter faltering. For a heartbeat, the darkness hesitated, and she felt it an opening, a flicker of hope as it shrank back, just slightly. But as soon as it emerged, the oppressive force surged again. In the frenzy, a revelation hit her. Jake wasn't just a memory, he had become this darkness. She had to confront him, had to dig deeper, to pierce through the veil of shadow surrounding him. What had he become, and how could she break this spell? But as her thoughts raced, the shadows began to reel back, reorganizing, readying for another assault. It was a battle of wills, but which side would claim victory? The moment froze, the air crackled with anticipation, the stakes high. Would she uncover the truth buried in those shadows, or would faint hope crumble into despair? As she stood poised on the brink of that shadowy maw of doubt, ready to fight with every ounce of strength, she heard a whisper in the dark, seductive and sultry, "You can't resist forever, Emma." What lay ahead was uncertain, but the struggle within those walls was just beginning. Would she find the strength to pierce the darkness, or would it consume them both into its icy abyss? Emma felt the shadows pulse and writhe around her, a living entity intent on smothering her will. The darkness was hungry, eager to extinguish the last spark of hope that flickered within her. She gritted her teeth, desperation clawing at her throat. "Carter!" She shouted again, her voice cracked and raw. All she could think of was her son, the innocence she had to protect. The growl from the pantry grew louder, transforming into an anguished wail, a sound that churned the air with dread. Emma turned her head toward the kitchen, heart pounding, throat dry. "What do you want?" She managed to whisper, an ember of defiance in her words. The atmosphere thickened, the shadows craning closer as if waiting for her to falter. A sudden flicker caught her eye, a faint light breaking from the dark crevice of the pantry door. Emma instinctively took a step back, a sliver of fear sharp within her. Yet, as if something pushed her forward, she felt compelled to investigate. It was an urge to either confront or flee, but there was no escaping the nightmare that enveloped them. With shaking hands, Emma grasped the cold, metal handle, and pulled. The door groaned, creaking on its hinges like a warning, revealing a void of darkness sprinkled with faint glimmers like stars in an endless night sky. But those were not stars, they were memories, remnants of joy and laughter twisted into shadows. "Join us, Emma," the whisper came again, richer, more appealing. It was like a magnet, tugging at her mind, each word an ethereal caress that felt all too familiar. She fought against it, yet she was drawn in, the swirling shadows promising her a reunion with Jake, or at least the memory of him. "No!" she exclaimed, snapping out of the trance as images of their life together threatened to overwhelm her. She remembered how he used to smile, how vibrant he had been before the darkness consumed him. That image morphed into something grotesque, the laughter hollowing out her resolve, reminding her of the truth: he was lost. But in the depths of the dark, she could feel him lingering. "Emma, why won't you let me in?" His voice was soft yet insistent. She could picture him, the slowly decaying figure emerging from shadows, and with that vision, her resolve hardened. This wasn't he, the man she loved. It was a twisted version, a monster that had taken root where love once blossomed. The shadows thrashed, sensing her shift. They tightened their grip, dragging at her limbs like a liar's embrace. Emma gasped, pulling Carter closer, wrapping her arms protectively around him. "I want to lose you too," she screamed into the suffocating blackness. Suddenly, an icy wind swept through the kitchen, a gust of breath from the shadows, sent to quell her defiance. It howled through the shutters, sending a shudder through the very bones of the house. In that moment, time froze, an endless second stretching out. Emma realized she had a decision to make. She could dive deeper into the memories, seek out the remnants of the past, or she could fight back. Fight against the curling tendrils of darkness that longed to drag her down, down where fear was tangible and joy was a fading echo. With a rush of determination, she pushed against the shadows. "You don't own me. You can take your lies back to the void." As she yelled, waves of energy burst forth from her, a surge so powerful it knocked the shadows back. They recoiled as if stung, laughter dying down to murmurs of anger, but as she stood there, emboldened, the pantry door slammed shut. It failed to offer comfort, instead, it sealed something inside. She felt the weight of something ancient pressing back against her. "You may have fought off the talons of my children's past," roared the entity, voice echoing like thunder, "but you will never be free from the grief that binds you." Emma staggered back as the shadows condensed into a singular form at the center of the room, a figure carved from the abyss. It lurched toward her, excitement clinging to its every move, promising the truths of the forgotten and lost. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and she understood, it would exploit her grief. With every ounce of resolve, she took a step forward. "I will remember. I will fight." The energy surged again, but this time, doubt nagged at her heart. Would this only lead to more despair? As the figure loomed closer, the air electric with anticipation, Emma realized it was now or never. She had to fight through the pain and confront the darkness head-on. But would she be able to shatter the illusion? The very essence of the shadows trembled, burgeoning with rage and desperation. "You think you can challenge me? You'll regret." But the threat was cut short as Emma prepared to unleash her truth, ready to expose what lurked behind the veil of shadow. What would be revealed amid the darkness, and who would truly stand when it all came to light? The figure roared, the sound shaking the walls and sending dust spiraling down from the ceiling. Emma's heart raced, pounding like a war drum in her chest. She felt its hollow gaze upon her, the void between them filled with a chilling hunger. She couldn't let it take her, not now, not after everything she had fought for. "Get away from my son." The words tore from her lips, raw and electric. They hung in the air, a fragile barrier against the darkness that loomed. Carter stirred in her arms, sensing the desperation, his small body trembling against the backdrop of horror, but the figure laughed, a spine-chilling sound that caressed her ears. "Do you really think you can protect him? Grief seeps into every corner, and it only takes a moment of weakness." It inched closer, stretching thin, elongated fingers towards them. The shadows moved like liquid, curling around the edges of the room, wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down. "Carter, hold on to me. Tight. Emma cried, her voice now a frantic whisper woven with panic. She fought against the grip of the shadows, muscles straining as if she were deep underwater, gasping for breath, fighting to break free. The figure paused, a grotesque smile cracking across what could barely be called a face. Ah, sweet child. Such innocence. Grief is but a doorway. With a swift motion, it flicked its wrist, and the pantry door creaked open again, expectant as a black hole sucking everything around it. Suddenly, a flood of memories poured from the pantry, swirling around like a storm. Emma felt lost in the cacophony of laughter, birthday candles, and whispers of love that turned into chilling cries of despair. Each memory a chain trying to pull her under. No. This isn't real. She shouted, clenching her jaw. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them away. She would not let it drown her. With a deep breath, she searched inside herself, anchoring to the love she knew wasn't a lure but a truth far stronger than the lies the darkness spun. She thought of Carter's laughter, the way his eyes lit up when he played outside. The warmth of his tiny hands holding hers. Those moments became fuel. I want to let you take him. Emma thrust her arm forward, a burst of defiance surging through her. Light erupted from her, pouring forth against the shadows, illuminating the room and slicing through the thick haze that had smothered her. The air crackled as reality clashed with nightmare. The figure screamed, a sound both tortured and enraged, lurching backward, but it was more than just the light that pushed it away. It was her newfound strength, her refusal to be a vessel for grief any longer. Silence breached the chaos, a deep breath settling momentarily in the air. Do you think this is over? Its voice hissed. The figure slumped back, contorting into the shadows, its form barely discernible now but still watching. A malevolent whisper filled the room, wrapping around her. You cannot escape the grief. You might have pushed me back, but there are others waiting. Emma froze, dread pooling in her stomach. Others? How many remnants of sorrow lurked in the dark, waiting for their moment to strike? She squeezed Carter against her, their breaths mingling with the fading terror. We need to go now, she said, the previous defiance giving way to an urgent urgency. Without wasting another moment, she pulled him towards the kitchen door, heart hammering against her ribs. The shadows shifted, a windswept mass of swirling despair, eager to reclaim what had slipped through their grasp. As they reached for Emma and Carter, a flicker of movement caught her attention. Was there someone? No, something moving in the shadows? The dark pulse of the house throbbed, and Emma felt it again, an echo of grief, a shadow of fear that whispered through her mind, urging her to remember. As she stood at the threshold, something clawed at her insides, forcing her to turn back one last time. The figure grinned, clearly pleased. You can run, but you can't hide, Emma. They will find you. All of them, with the weight of those chilling words pressing down on her. Emma thrust open the door. The night air rushed in, but the fear anchored her heart. She didn't know what awaited them outside or how deep this darkness truly ran, but one thing was certain: they weren't safe yet. And as they bolted into the night, the darkness stirred, ready to strike, and Emma knew it would stop at nothing. What else would emerge from the void, and how could she protect her son when more shadows awaited just beyond the light? Cold air slapped Emma's face like a warning. She gasped, pulling Carter closer as they raced into the night. The world outside felt familiar yet foreign, filled with shadows that stretched into menacing silhouettes in the moonlight. The darkness dripped with an unnatural silence, the kind that made the rustling of leaves seem like screams in the distance. Mom, what's happening? Carter's voice trembled, breaking through the chill that gripped her heart. Emma fought to swallow the fear threatening to swallow her whole. We'll be okay, sweetie. Just stay close. Even as the words left her lips, she felt the weight of doubt pierce through her resolve. The figure's taunt still echoed in her head, lingering like a bad smell. More were coming. They darted down the cracked sidewalk, glancing over their shoulders, expecting something, anything, to reach out from the shadows. Emma's mind raced with frantic thoughts, the memory of the figure's smile haunting her. "I won't let them get you," she whispered, more to herself than Carter. Suddenly, a wail sliced through the night, a bone-chilling sound that froze her blood. It wasn't coming from far away, it was close, too close. Emma led Carter to an old oak tree that towered like a sentinel, its gnarled roots snaking into the ground, offering a brief refuge. She crouched low, pressing him against the rough bark. As she scanned the street, the sound came again, a piercing cry that twisted her insides. It seemed to beckon from the shadows of a nearby alley. Emma's instincts screamed at her to run, to escape, but she couldn't abandon her son to whatever was lurking out there. Against her better judgment, she peered into the gloom. "Mom, don't." Carter tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide with fear, but the sound was captivating. It felt like a voice from another world, one she was not ready to answer but was inexplicably drawn to. There was movement in the alley, a glint of something metallic reflecting the moonlight. Every sense strained to decipher what lay beyond the veil of darkness. "Carter, I need you to stay quiet." Her voice was barely a whisper, each syllable coated in dread. Emma edged closer to the alley, heart hammering in rhythm with the cries. Then, she saw it, a shadow, but not just any shadow. There were faces, twisted and gnarled, emerging slowly as if peeling from the darkness. They all wore expressions of agony and sorrow, a chorus of lost souls whispering her name. Her own name. "Emma, no, no." She stumbled back, grabbing Carter tighter. The shadows surged, clawing closer, filling the small space around her. "We have to go now." They stumbled back onto the street, but the air shifted. The oppressive night seemed alive, closing in like a vice. Whispers lingered on the edge of hearing, slipping through her thoughts. The memories of laughter and joy were fading, dissolving into despair, and behind them, she felt others reaching out, seeking. "This way." Emma pulled Carter towards the park, the barren trees standing like sentinels against the moon. It was chaotic, an instinctual drive to move, but fatigue clawed at her spirit. She couldn't let the night consume her, but how long could she run from the grief that had taken form? Every breath became a battle as shadows followed, creeping around corners and rising from the ground like a sinister tide eager to engulf them. What did they want? Was it only her, or did they want Carter too? Suddenly, just as it seemed hope dimmed, a flicker of light pierced the darkness. Where had it come from? Emma's heart raced as they moved toward it. And then she saw it. The old streetlight was flickering, barely illuminating a path. But as she drew closer, she felt the warmth of its glow begin to fade, as if the darkness were swallowing it alive. "Mom, what is happening? We can't stop," Emma urged, a new terror sparking within her. They continued toward the light, but as they reached the lamppost, it flickered violently, a desperate strobe in a dying world. Behind them, the shadows surged, more faces appearing, eyes glinting with hunger. She felt it then, a pull at her heart, a tear in the fabric of her sanity. What was left to sacrifice for the sake of survival? The shadows hissed, inching closer. Emma felt the boundaries of her strength fray, the weight of despair clawing at her throat, suffocating any lingering hope. "Carter, hold on." And then, just as the shadows closed in, she glimpsed something else within the light, a figure appearing as if from nowhere. Its presence loomed, casting an unmistakable shadow of its own. As Emma's breath hitched in her throat, a chilling realization set in. This new figure might not be a savior at all. Would it be friend or foe? The figure in the light stepped forward, revealing a face both familiar and unsettling. Emma's heart raced, a sickening churn of hope and dread twisting in her stomach. "Jake?" The name slipped from her lips, an involuntary gasp. This was Carter's father, long gone, his heart extinguished in a tragic accident that still haunted her nights. "Emma, I've been searching for you," he said, voice steady but laced with an eerie resonance, as if he spoke from the depths of a long-forgotten grave. Carter clung to her side, confusion etched on his young face. "Mom, is that really Dad?" Before she could respond, the shadows seized the moment, an inky rush of despair crashing against them. They lunged towards Jake, hungry whispers growing more urgent, more frantic. The damned were closing in. Emma could feel the coldness radiate from their grotesque figures, dread coiling tighter around her. "Stay back!" she shouted, as Jake reached out with a hand that flickered like the dying streetlight. "You shouldn't be here." "Emma, listen to me," his voice dropped, becoming an unsettling hush. "You can't trust them. They'll take him too." A surge of panic surged through her. "Who? What do you mean?" He stepped closer, and the shadows shrieked, recoiling as if his very presence warded them off. "Follow me quickly. There's no time." Emma hesitated, the shadows' hunger clawing at her back. She felt their cold fingers reaching, trailing against her skin like icy breath. The fleeting warmth radiating from Jake felt like the only hope in this endless night. But could she trust this specter of her past, or had the darkness twisted him, turning him into something else? "Carter, come on!" she yelled, wrapping her arms tightly around her son. In one desperate move, she sprinted towards Jake, pulling Carter along with her. They surged past the flickering streetlight as the shadows writhed and slithered, searching for a way to engulf them. Jake led them deeper into the park, where the trees loomed with gnarled branches like claws, scraping at the sky. The shadows paused momentarily, as if the sanctuary of the trees offered a momentary respite. "Why are they after us?" Carter shouted, panic transforming his voice into a wheeze. "Because you're connected to something they want," Jake replied, casting a glance over his shoulder. "You're a beacon for them, Emma." A sudden chill swept through her, chilling her bones. "What do you mean? How?" "I couldn't tell you before, but I should have. Once you lost me, something awakened. They want to take you both. Your grief has made you vulnerable." Emma's mind raced as fear coiled tighter around her heart. "No, I want to let them." The shadows surged again, a collective howl of rage echoing through the trees, and she felt them pressing close, gnashing spectral teeth that glinted like broken glass. But then Jake stopped, facing the oncoming tide of darkness. "This way." He reached into the shadows, bending light and space around him. "We can lose them, but you have to trust me." She hesitated, torn between instinct and desperate want. Could this really be Jake? Or was this another deception, another damnation whispered by lost souls? "Mom!" Carter's voice broke her thoughts, desperation painting his features. "We have to go." Swallowing her doubts, Emma turned to Jake. They didn't have a choice. "Okay, we trust you." They huddled close to him as he extended an arm toward what appeared to be an impossible path of soft glow through the brambles. But just as they stepped forward, a howl split the air, shaking the ground beneath them. Shadows surged from every angle, faces twisted in torment, eyes full of a hunger that threatened to consume them all. "Go now!" Jake shouted, voice booming with urgency. "I'll hold them back." Emma's heart plummeted. "No! You can't! Do it!" His voice was thunder now, entrancing, commanding. "Run!" She hesitated, one foot caught between the past and the present. The cries grew louder, darkness was swallowing the light, swallowing Jake whole. "Carter!" She grabbed her son's arm, pulling him toward the glimmering path. And in that moment, resolve ignited within her. They would survive. But would it be at the cost of everything? The shadows lunged in anger, grasping for her as she felt the weight of a life half-remembered come crashing down. The path loomed like a lifeline, leading away from the torment, yet toward an abyss of the unknown. What lay beyond that flickering light? Before she could find out, darkness sharpened its claws, ready to drag them back. "Run!" And with the shadows hot on their heels, she bolted forward, terrified of what awaited them on the other side. Would the truth be their salvation or their doom? Emma felt the ground pulse beneath her feet as she sprinted, darkness creeping at the edges of her vision. Carter struggled to keep up, his small hand slipping from hers as he stumbled over roots and fallen branches. She turned back, her heart wrenching at the sight of the shadows clawing closer, the twisted faces a jumbled mass of anguish, anger, and insatiable hunger. "Carter!" She shouted again, desperation rising in her throat like bile. She reached back, grabbing his hand tightly, the chill of his skin shocking her. "I can't run much longer," he gasped, breath coming in rapid bursts. "If we stop, they'll get us," Emma urged, her voice a frantic rush. She felt the weight of fear pressing down on her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. More shadows slithered forth like oil spilling over the ground, stretching towards them, whispering countless taunts, remnants of troubles, regrets, and buried pain. "Don't listen," she yelled, pushing through the gnawing anxiety. "Focus on me. Just keep running." With each step, they tore deeper into the forest, leaving the flickering streetlight behind, a stuttered heartbeat in a world turned quietly brutal. Jake's presence faded from her mind, replaced by sheer survival instinct. She forced herself to concentrate on the faint glimmer ahead, a faint scintillation in the thick darkness. The shadows snarled, their voices becoming an overwhelming raucous cacophony. "Emma!" they screamed. "Join us. You can't escape. You're not real," Carter cried, faltering. "They want to tear us apart," she hissed, dragging him along. The words felt like a lifeline, even as the air thickened, heavy and thick like mud around them. She pivoted, searching for some semblance of normalcy in this nightmare. "Just stay close." The glimmer ahead pulsed, like a heartbeat of hope, but the shadows surged like a tempest, relentless. Chunks of darkness splintered off, darting towards them, seeking flesh and light. Once again, Emma felt their skin-tingling cold press against her back, fangs of despair grazing her shoulders, pulling her thoughts to the depths of her own grief. Then it struck like lightning, a sudden halt in her thoughts. "Carter!" she shouted, realizing a terrifying truth. "We need to confront the grief. We can't let it consume us." "But how?" He squeaked through the panic, his frightened eyes darting between her and the encroaching shadows. "We stand together," she commanded, even as uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. The flickering glimmer was closer now, but the shadows loomed thick and suffocating. Raising her voice, Emma shouted, "You want us? You want our grief?" She forced her fear into her words, trying to weave strength into the frailty of her resolve. "Come and take it if you can." The shadows paused, a moment of confusion washing over them like a dark wave. The air became electric, charged with a tangible dread. The glimmer flared brighter, illuminating the dark forms, and for just a heartbeat, Emma could see them for what they truly were: fragments of her past, echoes of loss that had twisted into malignancy. "Carter, don't look away," she yelled, clenching his hand. "Remember your dad. Remember the love." She felt a swell of heat, a flicker of life igniting in her consciousness. As the memory surged forth, the shadows writhed and shrieked, angered by the light of her recollection. "No! You cannot remember!" they howled, struggling against the power of her memories, and just like that, she saw it behind the shadows, another path illuminated like a beacon, hidden in the chaos of despair. The glimmer beckoned, promising a way out if only they could overpower the darkness that held them captive. "Carter, we have to move now." She tugged him forward, relinquishing all doubt, fueled by the love that once connected them with Jake, but as they ran toward the flickering light, the shadows surged again, more adamant, more vengeful. "You cannot escape your past," they shrieked, a chorus of agony reaching a deafening crescendo. Emma's pulse quickened with terror, doubts clawing at her mind, but she wouldn't stop. "They wouldn't die here." "What if it's a trap?" Carter whimpered, and Emma's heart sank. "Then we fight." Her voice was hoarse. "For your dad. For us." As they broke through the last lines of darkness, the light enveloped them. The shadows shrieked in fury, and the path behind began to collapse, the remnants of despair crashing like waves, but as they landed in the unknown, the brilliant glow faded, and Emma realized with dread that the night was far from over. In the flickering twilight where they stood, something new stirred. A sinister whisper beckoned beyond the light. "What now?" Carter asked, eyes wide with fear. And that's when Emma noticed the figures forming in the shadows, familiar yet warped. "Let them come," she whispered, feeling her heart race again, ready for the next battle. But she had no idea that this time, they wouldn't be alone in their fight. Who else had they awakened? The shadows loomed larger than ever, swirling around the dim twilight that grasped at Emma and Carter's every breath. The figures emerging from them were no longer indistinct, they bore the faces of lost loved ones, faces that twisted in agony. Each one called out to them, begging for release while their hollow eyes burned with memories long buried. "Carter, stay behind me!" Emma yelled, a desperate instinct pushing her to shield him from this torment. Yet even her sword-like resolve faltered under the haunted pleas, pressing against her like the weight of regret. "Mom, why do they look like that?" Carter whimpered, confusion lacing his young voice. "They're not who they were," she replied, trying to summon the strength in her own voice. "They're trapped in their grief, just like we were. But we can break free." At that moment, she felt the warmth of her memories flicker like a candle flickering in the wind. She pressed a hand against her heart. "The love we shared can help them, it can help us." As Emma stepped forward, the shadows twisted, a writhing mass of sorrow and bitterness that clawed at her ankles. "You think love can save you?" rasped a figure, shifting grotesquely before her. The voice was unmistakable. It belonged to Jake. "You don't even remember, do you?" "No. Get away from us!" Emma shouted, remembering the man she loved. The actual man. The kind, vibrant man who had held her close and guided her. Jake's form shimmered, and for a moment, she glimpsed that genuine smile before the shadows consumed him again. "Come join me, your grief is your only shelter." "No." Her voice rang with clarity, resonating within the thick air. "You've become a prison for yourself and for me. I want to let you drag us further into despair." The shadows recoiled slightly, and she felt a surge of energy pulsing through her. "Carter, remember your fun times with Dad. Remember what he felt like." Carter swallowed hard, eyes widening, and straightened as he took a step beside his mother. "I remember," he shouted, face lit with determination. "Dad made the best pancakes. He sang silly songs." With each word, the shadows shrieked, their forms flickering less stable. "You're lying." Jake's voice exploded in anger, but Emma could sense vulnerability now, a crack in the darkness. "No. It's the truth." Emma pressed on, her heart pounding with hope. "He loved with all his being, and that love is still alive inside of us." Suddenly, the memory of laughter, of joyous family dinners, of shared dreams coalesced into a blinding light. "Feel it, Carter. Channel it." Emma grasped her son's hands, feeling his warmth merge with her own. The collective memories flooded back like a tide, overwhelming, beautiful, poignant. They stood firm against the shadows twisting around them. "We are here, and we will not let you take us," Emma yelled, facing the void that howled in fury. With that shout, the light burst forth like a supernova, illuminating the area around them. The murky shadows shrieked as they began to dissipate, swirling wildly, their cries merging into a strange harmony, a mix of anguish and relief. In that shining moment, Emma felt the very fabric of the darkness recoil, a living entity moments away from being extinguished. "No!" Jake screamed, his form twisting in exasperation. "You fought our love." Emma shot back. "But your grief can't hold sway over our joy." The light enveloped her and Carter completely, and as time slowed, she saw familiar faces of their loved ones leading the charge, stepping forward from the shadows. "We come to you, to break the chains," they said, resonating with unity. The shadows around them howled defiantly, but Emma felt the tide turning as hope swelled within, fueled by the bonds of love and memories that they forged together. In one final burst, she pushed against the darkness, not just for herself but for all who had been trapped within. No more. With one triumphant cry, she thrust her hands forward. The shadows splintered, consumed by the radiance enveloping her and Carter. The faces twisted and intertwined, angry cries turned to lamentations, until only silence remained. The light faded, and Emma opened her eyes, breathless. They were standing together in the park, bathed in moonlight, familiar but filled with solace. She turned to see Carter looking up at her with awe and resolve now glimmering in his young features. "Did we win?" he asked softly. "We did," she breathed, warmth flooding her heart. "You were so brave, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." "I remembered Dad," he exclaimed, and she felt herself tearing up. "He was awesome, Mom. He loved us." Emma gathered him into a fierce embrace, feeling her heart swell with an indescribable joy. "Yes, and we will always remember the love. Nothing can take that away from us." As they turned to leave the park, the night seemed brighter, the shadows receding into the distance, whispering secrets into the wind. Emma glanced back one last time at the familiar oak trees, hoping that the spirits they met would find peace in the light. "Let's go home," she murmured, with a new sense of purpose. And they walked forward, hand in hand, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing they had conquered the darkness, and just like that, the shadows began to fade into the depths, forced to relinquish their hold, at least for now, and Emma felt a lighter step as hope and love filled the spaces once consumed by despair. If you've stuck with us through this wild journey, you need to subscribe now to catch more spine-chilling stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this channel alive. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. We can't do this without your support.